Hello everyone. The title of today's talk is Path of the Unshaken. And so Mr. Within would like to talk, before getting into any story or any consideration of an idea, would like to say, let man acknowledge the presence of man. For if man cannot see man being here, he shall not see man being anywhere else. Respect the existence that you are selflessly. And with the grace of the light of a new dawn, may we begin to take our first steps, unshaken. Let us begin with where the human being is considering himself to be. We have a planet, we are a person, we are here, we're looking around, we are conscious, we perceive. Now, in our perception, we notice objectivity. We notice the distance between our finger and anything we can choose to touch in the room that we are in. But just like how we are physically in a room where there is distance, just like how my room, my bedroom is different than the park outside, there is different senses of reality and awareness and observance of objectivity. Many beings are going through multidimensional streams of self-awareness. In other words, they're recognizing their consciousness was never just an individual idea, but the greatest movement of an infinite vision of that idea. What that means is you did not just see yourself succeeding, you saw yourself failing, and you saw all potentials. You saw your greatest aspects and you saw your worst. And there you stood in the flame of your judgment to see who you are. And then one recognizes that since the beginning of the fact that man perceives himself to be, he has been aware of his cause. Beyond ideology, you will lose a need to have hierarchy. And what that means is you do not want to judge the people you see. You do not want to make human communication termed. And so terminology needs to collapse, and it shall when the experiencers becomes aware. You must fall in love with your world. That is how you can transcend it. Gosh, just like how I am transcending this word. There is something here which will activate you as you observe it and sincerely acknowledge this moment of your being. As you do, you will see it is not about leadership. Trust me, Mr. Within knows the leadership must come from within. You must see that internally you are within such a peaceful world, and this is not a peaceful world of your consideration. You're not trying to create a utopia, you know. Many of our thinkers and right now many of our academics have an ability to come to new vision, but they cannot be active because action cannot be in a state of being, of planning. What that means is Martin Luther King probably knew that he could not just write speeches on paper. He had to go communicate the message that needed to point to what was wrong to then become right. And similar to that incident, you can look at what is wrong with you to notice that you will go into the space of how it can be right for you. What that means is if you were right now doing some action which you felt it was causing you suffering, observe that action and see, by you looking at that action, by you being aware of that thought, that's a sense you're getting. Now become aware that as you are aware of the worst, you cannot be separate from an awareness of the best. There is no dark creature who cannot see a light reflection, and there is no light being who cannot learn from its shadow. It is a union of worlds, and that is when the character has reunited with his collective consciousness. What that means is many people have the Casper idea of a soul. But I looked at that, and there were moments that I have had visions outside of my immediate physical, body or whatever. I've woken up in the morning before I've woken up, and it is all a projection. It is not about an ability that a human being has. Realization has nothing to do with the human idea, but the existential intelligence and experiential intelligence that is aware of the idea. So you don't want to say, oh gosh, these people are judging me. No one is judging you. People are judging things in which you are considering. They're coming into your proximity of awareness. What that means is, in this life, you can walk around into many places. And if you choose to walk close to a dumpster, well, of course, you're going to smell suffering, And if you choose to continue walking past the dumpster, you begin to see in an instant it could change. You could be a person who has nothing, and in an instant, for example, a girl can come and your mind will change. You will begin to have hope in the intelligence of the natural world, and love is the greatest beacon for mankind to absorb into greater intelligence. For in love, the individual consciousness is given an existential allowance of projection. What that means is, if you notice, when you love someone, you don't have to say you love someone. You are just comfortable with their presence, and it's as if your presence knows their presence, not in an ideal way, it's just you have lived or been with that person. And we must develop an ability to reveal the most beautiful aspects of humanity to this world. Do you know how bad it is? Some people might be passing away and transitioning, and in this life they might feel they've never been listened into, but they might have amazing views. Do you know? I believe writers hold the duty of unleashing other writers. You are not a writer unless writing has become as simple as breathing for you. And similarly with every art form. For it is the awareness to form in which the artwork is present. Beauty was that moment where you saw it happen. When it is suggested to be on the path of the unshaken, it simply means that do not be surprised if this life does not make sense, but be surprised when you have passed over something where you thought it was going to make you perish. You are an existential inspiration to be the form you are. Mankind is playfully the fingers of God, and in its ability of movement, it thought it was separate. The fingers thought they were moving themselves, but then the palm that held it all was found. And so we are part of a greater sense of intelligence. I mean, we can choose to keep ourselves in the dark, but I don't like to, stay indoors when I could go outdoors and watch fireworks. It's there must be a sense within you that sincerely wants realization for your being, not for anyone else's. What that means is you are curious. Because trust me, if someone else tries to convince you, and even that, let me tell you something hilarious. In this life, many people have they have looked at preachers, and many people have the idea that preachers are just like a one-way talking machine. But you begin to see, if the preacher, let us say if you as a human being went up to someone and as a preacher said something, and that person immediately got it, you would see if you said something to someone and they did exactly what you said, after a while you would feel as if it is not natural. Human communication thrives in its most honest ability to be its communication. So in other words, what I'm trying to suggest is that we must move into an awareness that sees we were always here. Of course, sometimes I feel words are bridges, in the sense that when you look at a bridge, it is kept above an elevation as if underneath it is empty, but it is connecting worlds. Learn from yourself. For as you do, you will amplify your ability to see greatness in others. And if I could really simplify this, what I mean is, like, if you've never stretched before and you were, like, let's say the first person who realized what stretching was, you know, the first being who actually consciously stretched, you know, you would see, you would want to share that with others. Because the beautiful thing about compassion was that it was an enhancing process. It was a sharing process. It gave, and it was no longer in a win-lose dynamic, but not that everybody was so abundant, but the abundance was transforming into a greater abundance. So right now, what we're seeing is different men getting rich and then holding their wealth and trying to last and then giving their wealth to their children. But if you become aware, if mankind could put his wealth very analyzed, in other words, if we had an organizational method that was honest, if this world was honest, our technologies would advance beyond belief. You would not understand this. If this world became one drop, if this world became, if all the human beings in this world recognized that a drop of honesty within the ocean was the ocean of truth, silenced you could never be, for your voice is not just that which is coming from your mouth. Your voice is your projection, your presence of existence. You are kept by a collectivity that never needed individual judgment. Feel the serenity. Feel it in your solitude. Feel it when you are confronting your self-reflection. Feel it when you recognize there is nothing here for you other than everything else. For if man for a minute could get the eyes of the wind, and you could be the experience of every wind, in other words, in terms of the sight that is going on throughout the planet, you would begin to see that there is hope in this world. Again, beyond belief. Trust me, there's you think many people believe in this concept of apocalypse, the end of days, you know. And I'm saying there's believing it based on a belief of the end of days. But you must see, if someone could tell you, if some being could tell you the end of days, and of course I'm saying this playfully, if some being was to tell you the end of days, you would see that being would probably know this from before. When man takes an aspect of this plane of existence as the truth beyond truth, in other words, he takes one symbol as the symbol for all symbols, he will see he has forgotten to take one symbol. Because the person who was in the dynamic and imagery of being a follower forgot to take the step of becoming the God within. The omniscience that is here is present existentially, because it is suggesting that just like how you are alive, dear human being, your world is alive as well. Do you think consciousness can forget itself? The path of the unshaken is where you will become blissful. Intellect will transform alchemically, experientially into bliss. You would find yourself in blissful moments of emptiness, where you don't have to be any consideration, but you are the allowance of your world to be present. And if you take this with subtlety, if you listen to the words of other men and see that they're all pointing to your voice, you will see that when this self-awareness finds itself beyond the hall of mirrors, in an instant you knew that which you are. For the unshaken were never flawed. It is important for man to recognize that as he has chosen to work with ideology, with senses of self, with individuality, with distinction, with considerations and segmented views on space and time, he must see that this life will take man beyond the rage of his greatest conception, beyond the intensity of your greatest conception. Visualize your greatest idea and then visualize the emptiness that will capture the evolution of that idea. For man is not at times worshiping God, but he is worshiping himself. And if you consciously worship yourself, see that you're worshiping yourself, you will see you have been praying through your breath. Your existence is divine. This divinity is found through the novelty that could never be touched. It continued. What that means is many men have felt the curb, but while their head was on that curb, they knew it was mankind who had built the curb. And so mankind would stand up. He would stand up and he would take existential responsibility. Enough with these mind games. We are not separate, only our communication suggests separation. Do not make the world something it is not. Sincerely walk, unhindered by ideology that has to make you to be in a certain way. Do you believe how I felt when I recognized I have been giving myself tremendous amounts of guilt and depression earlier in my life, and when I came out of it, I was like, this is torture because of a lack of awareness. Even our adults today think they are adults, but it needs to be an advancement in an existential understanding in which we are that which makes this world spiritual, transcendental, beyond ideology, beyond conceptualization, and absolute unquestionably supreme. Your guidance shall come. You shall be guided. You must recognize all intensity of communication is projected based on the imagery you have within yourself. What that means is when you listen to my talk, you might actually be like, oh, this guy's saying interesting things. But you know what Mr. Within is saying? Mr. Within is saying, what are your opinions? How are you seeing what another person is saying? Just become aware of your interpretation. For every form in this life is a mirror of existence. It is showing you the reflection. It is a reflection of your awareness. When you open a book and you begin reading that first, page, it is your eyes that have given this world life. For if you did not open your eyes in the morning, could there ever be a night? And so some men do prefer to go gentle into that good night. But when manifestation begins to learn from the stillness that suggested it never being here, you will realign your world to then realign your physical experience. To be honest, we are in a world where we must have the poet's mind and we must have the mystic's eyes. It is all imagery, it is all archetypes, it is fabulous. You are learning the minute your eyes are open. Just increase your existential sensitivity and worlds of knowledge will innately sprout out of you. You begin to see that there are different ways. Mr. Within wants to communicate this, of course, very, very quickly right now. Knowledge can be sought externally, or when knowledge is sought internally, it does not exist for an idea. So the human experience and how it's receiving abstraction and its experience of thought is actually how his vision is situated in emptiness. And so we really need to create some stuff, We need to really think about it. The fact that we need to all actually slow hand clap for all those human beings who were able to make language what it is today. Because language is giving us the technology we need to be our transcendence. For the bridge is similar to how when you have reached the peak of a mountain, there's nowhere else to go. Once you have crossed the bridge, my beloved, you are always home. Find yourself in great existential reunion. You have not just come here to see your friends, your Facebook friends, or just your family members and just who you know. You have come here to observe this world. What that means is don't be rude to your whole world by just talking to your friends. Go and experience this world. Go in solitude. Go see how you're existing in this existence. What Mr. Within plans to see is hopefully in 7 to 10 years, we will have such an immense ability of the human being to clearly observe his existence that compassion will come because we will use our intellect to filter the discriminations we have. So what that means is it's that moment where you're seeing the human mind has been working with rationality for a while, and it's like rationality is like this great tool in man's hand. But this rationality also knows of the nonlinear direct experience of devotion and that of love. And when you begin to see this, it's as if the rational idea of you who knew it meant, okay, it's like, who knew that you needed to survive in a certain way when you saw beyond your survival. Your whole world compassionately took care of the rest. Observe the world you are within. For once you find Mr. Within, your eyes had said it all from the beginning of conception. Unshaken. The ocean welcomes the drops of rain. Much blessings and namaste.